Once upon a time, in the bustling town of Speedville, lived a little snail named Turbo Tim. Now, you might be thinking, what's so special about a snail named Turbo? Well, hold on to your shells, because Turbo Tim wasn't just any ordinary snail. He was the fastest snail in all of Speedville. One sunny morning, Turbo Tim woke up with a gleam in his eye and a swirl in his shell. He knew it was going to be a day filled with excitement and adventure. Little did he know, his speedy skills were about to be put to the ultimate test. As Turbo Tim slithered out of his cozy little home, he heard a faint cry for help coming from the other side of town. "Help! Help!" it echoed. Turbo Tim wasted no time and revved up his turbocharged engine, also known as his shell. With a zoom zoom and a vroom vroom, Turbo Tim raced through the town, leaving a trail of dust behind him. He arrived at the scene to find his friend, Benny the bunny, stuck in a tree. "Turbo Tim, thank goodness you're here," Benny exclaimed, his floppy ears drooping with worry. "Don't worry, Benny, I'll save you," Turbo Tim declared heroically. With a determined look on his face, he revved his shell and launched himself into action. With each twist and turn, he zipped up the tree, leaving a trail of whoosh and whee behind him. Finally, Turbo Tim reached the top of the tree and gently helped Benny down to safety. "Phew! Thanks, Turbo Tim. You're the best," Benny said, hopping with joy. But their adventure was far from over. As they made their way back to Speedville, they stumbled upon a group of animals gathered around a broken-down race car. It belonged to Speedy Steve, the fastest racer in town. "Oh no, what happened?" Turbo Tim asked, inspecting the car with his keen eye for detail. "It looks like Speedy Steve's car broke down right before the big race," one of the animals explained. Turbo Tim knew he had to do something to help. He may have been a snail, but he had a heart as big as a racing track. "Don't worry, everyone. Turbo Tim is here to save the day," he declared with confidence. Using his lightning-fast reflexes and quick thinking, Turbo Tim gathered whatever tools he could find and got to work. With a clang and a clunk, he tinkered and tinkered until the race car was as good as new. The animals cheered with delight as Speedy Steve hopped into his newly repaired car. "Thanks, Turbo Tim. You're a lifesaver," Speedy Steve exclaimed, revving his engine in excitement. With the race car back in action, Turbo Tim and his friends hurried to the racetrack just in time for the big event. The crowd roared with anticipation as the engines revved and the countdown began. 3, 2, 1, go! The announcer shouted, and the race was on. Speedy Steve zoomed ahead, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. But Turbo Tim wasn't far behind. With each twist and turn, he dodged obstacles and overtook competitors with lightning speed. The crowd gasped and cheered as Turbo Tim raced towards the finish line. In the end, it was a neck-and-neck race between Speedy Steve and Turbo Tim. But just as they were about to cross the finish line, disaster struck. A stray banana peel sent Speedy Steve spinning out of control. Without a second thought, Turbo Tim slammed on the brakes and skidded to a stop, just inches away from the finish line. He looked back and saw Speedy Steve in trouble. Without hesitation, Turbo Tim reversed and raced back to help his friend. With a zoop and a zing, Turbo Tim swooped in and pushed Speedy Steve's car across the finish line. The crowd erupted into cheers as Turbo Tim and Speedy Steve crossed the finish line together, side by side. As they celebrated their victory, Turbo Tim couldn't help but feel proud. Not just because he won the race, but because he had learned an important lesson. True friendship is more valuable than any trophy. And so, as the sun set over Speedville, Turbo Tim and his friends shared laughter and stories of their epic adventure. For in the end, it wasn't just about racing to the finish line, but about racing to the rescue and being there for each other, no matter what. The end.